Okay, we have about 80 people in attendance, which means that we are likely at a quorum. Want to welcome all of you to the 2023 annual meeting for Evergreen Indiana Library Consortium. There's a lot of stuff in here, so we're going to keep on going through before I go off on tangents, as I tend to do. So, first thing we have is the agenda, and that brings us to Janet, our chair, who's going to call this to order. There you
go. Okay, I call this meeting to order.
Fantastic. And that will be noted at 2:01 p.m. So this does go into our minutes that are kept for this meeting, and we'll be on to approving last year's in just a moment. First, I want to introduce Jake Spear is here from the Indiana State Library, of course, our state librarian, and he's going to have something to say us in a second. And then Janet, who is the chair for the executive committee, will follow him. And I'm not going to say anything more than what I say through the entire presentation. You'll listen to me for about an hour or so. Go for it, Jake.
Thanks, Ruth. Welcome, everyone. I'm Jake Spear. It's really great to have 80 plus people here. It's hard to believe that we're coming up on 15 years in August from the first library when Zionsville went live in August of 2008 on Evergreen. We've had a huge amount of growth, of course, at first, and in the last few years, we've been growing again, and it's really great to see that. Evergreen, Indiana is the premier program that we offer here from the State Library. It's right there with Inspire and our delivery service and everything else. And the collaboration and growth that we've seen is really phenomenal. You know, the amount of staff that we put towards this, the State Library Foundation that handles some of the funds, it really brings a lot of different, communities and organizations together under one umbrella for the betterment of Indiana patrons. And so we're really excited to have this annual meeting and to see our 15th year coming up later this year, and really looking forward to future things. The collaboration that we have helps lead to things like Indiana Digital Library, which started a year ago, and have potential for new things going forward. But again, thank you all for being here, and I'll turn it back over to Janet. Thanks.
Okay. Hi, I'm Janet Wallace. I'm the library director at the Shelby County Public Library, and we joined Evergreen in May of 2012, so not at the beginning, but soon after. It was a great boost for our patrons to have access to so many materials. I've been involved with the Evergreen Executive Committee 3 different times over the years, and I've been the chair before, and I'm the chair now. Evergreen has 129 libraries, including one to be added this year, and 2 institutional libraries. So we're blessed to have the resources from all of these libraries. It's great to be able to also have databases that we have had, and just to name a few, the Reference USA and soon Library IQ. I don't think it's it's up and running yet. I was on vacation last week, so
it is up and running.
It is up and running. Okay, so it is up and running. Thank you. And of course, we have the Overdrive and Libby. It's also a great community filled with answer that we can get our answers to all of our questions. And I just want to thank all the members and I hope that you find that this annual meeting will be informative. Okay.
Thank you, Jake, and thank you to Janet. I guess I am going to actually say something. I'm Ruth Frazier. I am the consortium coordinator now, which is kind of weird because I started with Evergreen in 2008. Union County Public Library was one of the pilots. After, of course, Hussey Mayfield kicked it all off. And that was really at the beginning of my profession in libraries, as well as with Evergreen, Indiana. And so now I find myself here in the administrative role, doing coordination for you all. And I'm very grateful and humbled very often, which is probably a good thing for me. And so impressed by all of the work that all of you do for your communities, for one another, and for the consortium. So I'm going to go ahead. We're going to do some more business here before we get into all the stats and the fun stuff. So we have the minutes from the 2022 annual meeting. And I am by no means going to read through these minutes, by the way. But if anybody sees any corrections, perhaps that we need to address, let me know. If not, Janet, you can call for somebody.
Do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
And those motions can be made by anybody in attendance here because you are representing your library as a council member.
This is Krista Ledbetter from the Morgan County Public Library. I move we accept the minutes as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Nick Steffen from the Garrett Public Library. I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor?
And they can either put aye in chat or raise their hand.
Okay. All right. I think. All right. I see lots of ayes, so I'll say that that is approved. Okay.
Awesome.
Turn it back over to you.
So now we're going to go through all of the things. I would encourage you, Britta is going to put into chat again a link to these slides. They are very dense, and there are some links in there which I hope that you find useful. I'm going to start out with some acknowledgments here. So when I came into the role as coordinator, hasn't really been that long. It was in May, I think, of this past year when I was actually came as the full coordinator rather than the interim coordinator, and moved out of the role as the support and training administrator. And then we very, very luckily got Britta Dorsey, who had previously been at Thorntown Public Library, to come in and fill that role. And I can't say enough about what an asset she has been to this team and for the consortium. We also have Kristen Worstel, who replaced Bob, if anybody could ever do that. We don't know, but she's doing such a great job learning both the interfaces and the database for Evergreen, Indiana, and just very, very happy to have her here. We have Jeremy Murray, who's been with the State Library for a long time, but then came into Evergreen, Indiana, and has done the impossible, which is learn the back end of Evergreen, which is a very complex piece of software. And he has kept the trains as on time as they could ever be. And that is miraculous and amazing. And so if you ever get the opportunity to thank him in person, I highly recommend that you do. We just could not do this without Jeremy being here. Then also a shout out to Stephanie Asbury, who is the Associate Director for Public and Statewide Services here at the State Library. I often, when I think about Stephanie, I think of her as the grease that keeps it all going. She has her hands on just about everything, and she knows how to get things moving in a direction if somehow they feel like they're stalled. She is a great person for advice, and sometimes just a good listening ear, which is necessary when you are doing all of these things. And then they're not here represented, but definitely Equinox Open Library Initiative has been our, well, it's probably not too far to say. They have saved our heinies a few times this past year as we went through several transitional periods. with our very young staff doing some very large projects, bringing on very large libraries. And so it has been a wonderful thing to be part of this open source community, as well as this consortium, to be able to continue to offer better and better support and resources for our member libraries, and then also even our non-member libraries, because they benefit from Evergreen, Indiana, even if they don't know it. So just an overview of the finances. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. You can see what we were over and under in our guesstimates, as most budgets tend to be educated guesses. We came in just under $9,000. So it was close, but we did it, and that was pretty amazing too, for a year when we spent a lot of money, as you can see, on equipment and software. That line item in there also includes support, and so that is where Equinox falls right squarely in there. And so we were still able to come in under our budgeted amount. So I was as pleased as a person can be about money, I guess. Just some highlights about the committee. We're going to talk a little bit more about what the committees actually did, but all committees met regularly in a variety of ways. Of course, with COVID, everything was online. And if you met, it was a miracle, but if you did, it was online. And coming back to meeting in person has been something to reflect on. First of all, is it required? Second of all, is it helpful? And so the executive committee is required by our bylaws to meet in person to an extent. We did have and this was kind of that transitional period where we were coming out of the executive order that allowed for those types of committees to meet virtually. So that's why we have 3 via Zoom and then 3 at member libraries. But one of the things that we are continuing, and this is something that Anna started, was the ability to participate remotely if needs be, and for our members to also just come as guests via Zoom. And then, so the patron services and the cataloging committees and the e-content committee, those I do all of those, have all decided, because they are subcommittees and don't have the same requirement as the executive committee, to continue meeting online exclusively, unless they want to meet at a conference or something like that, but that would be advertised. Because it does really open up the ability for people who are often working desks or working multiple types of jobs in their library to participate without having to drive for 3 hours, or in some cases 4 hours. We see more participation from the corners of the state, which is a great thing. So moving forward, these are executive committee members. I did put just some little asterisks saying who is leaving the committee after their term has been complete, and thank you to them. Some of the things the executive committee did, and this is kind of where the rubber meets the road here, is with the executive committee. It's kind of hard to believe this all happened just in 1 year, but it did. The executive committee established a new library card standard, which this is kind of a long time coming, in my opinion, that allows libraries to create locally customized card designs while still honoring the membership in the Evergreen Indiana Consortium. The executive committee also accepted the applications for Lowell Public Library, who has already launched with Evergreen Indiana, did that in December, and then also for Pearston, Washington Township, and we're in the process of their coming on board right now. The The executive committee also voted to expend some reserve funds to implement Library IQ. It has launched. Not all of the wrinkles have been ironed out completely from that, and so we're working with our person there. Her name is Molly, and her team to get all of the data mapped correctly and the users who need accounts to have them. But I have been just, again, this is one of the things that just blew me away. First of all, the positivity that came back from members of the consortium, the excitement that people shared, and also the fact that I really do think that this is something that is just a wonderful value add for our members. We had 150. I have to go back and look at the numbers. Is more than that. Like 180 people come to the training sessions for Library IQ. And one thing to keep in mind too, because I just have gotten these questions again, this is something similar to Reference USA that the consortium is paying for on behalf of members coming out of membership money, so that while it does say here that they voted to expend reserve funds to implement, it will be a budgeted item going forward for the consortium, as opposed to it being something that y'all pay for separately. Then we also did some development work with Equinox. One of the things was a multifaceted bug fix project that we should be implementing pretty soon that deals with parts. If you're not a cataloger, you may not have any angst whatsoever related to parts, or if you don't place holds for people on a regular basis. But if you do, that is going to be a project that makes your life better. Also, the addition of a new permission, which is a replace barcode permission. This is going to be particularly meaningful for people with circulation permissions. And I'm not going to go too far into that other than to say this has been a long-standing issue, having people working at the circ desk that need the ability to do a thing, and we have to give them too much permission to do the thing. This allows it to be a little bit more dialed into just that thing, which is replacing a barcode. And then another large thing that the executive committee worked on, not exclusively, but it came down to their final vote, which was to approve the new membership fee structure, which is based on a percentage of the evaluated annual operating expenditures, rather than previously it being a static amount within tiers that required a budgetary vote every year for that. Okay, cataloging committee. Again, we have our members. Thank you to all of them for participating. Britta is no longer with Thorntown Public Library, as I already said, but she was still on the cataloging committee previously. She stays there as an advisor, but now with Indiana State Library. And then Josephine Kaiser, sadly for us, went to Hancock County Public Library, which is non-Evergreen. So her last words were, maybe I can convince them to join. I was like, well, maybe. The cataloging committee has been working very diligently on several very technical things, a lot having to do with authorities and also different printings and versions and editions of items and how those go into the catalog so that our patrons can best find them. Then we also have had a discussion about the cover art uploader. We did get an opinion from Sylvia Watson, and she actually did a very good review of the casework that has been done related to copyrights as it pertains to OPAC cover images. And we're continuing to work on the details for that in the cataloging committee. Another thing that the cataloging committee, as well as the patron services committee, chose to do was to move to bi-monthly meetings, because there just seems to be so much work that the meetings get long, and that's one reason, is to space that work out, but also to have our projects get done sooner. You have a 3-month lull, and plus things, whenever there's a time hole, something fills that up. And so this will hopefully help both of those committees get through certain issues a little bit faster. And I'm very grateful that there was a pretty unanimous willingness to do that as well. So again, our patron services committee, and Darla Lepley, again, was another one that had, is great to have on a committee, and then she left her library. So that is, I'm not sure that these holes can actually be filled, or the people can be replaced. They just get filled by different people who can't be replaced. I'm not going to read through all of this, but except for I do want to point out that there is, you may have noticed this when you are going to set permissions for a new employee, that there is a non-administrative module that is in there. And what that was, it has been piloted by Porter County as a way to not give local admin permission to everybody. If you have a multi-branch system, this becomes a pretty important thing because of overrides. But this new, because we can use secondary permission profiles now, this is a modular permission group that can be added to, like a Circ1 permission group that adds some higher level permissions to it, but not all of the permissions that the local admin profile would provide. That was pretty exciting. I haven't heard anything bad about it, and I usually do hear the bad things about something. So I hope that it is going well for them, and it is open for anybody else to try too. That permission group is in there. If you have any questions about it, feel free to let me know. And I will also be adding it, some more information about it to the staff profile matrix, or a staff permission matrix. And then we have the e-content committee, and I do want to not take too much time here, but I do want to say a word about just missing Mary Glazier. And it was a very tragic loss for losing her from both, of course, this committee, but from Evergreen and just general life. So moving on from there, Mandy from Noble County also left her library. So we did see some people leave the e-content committee. If this is something you are ever interested in, you want to get started in Evergreen governance, this is a pretty low-key committee. So I would encourage you to do that. With that said, it hasn't always been low-key. This is where the discussions started about the Indiana Digital Library Consortium, which is a pretty big deal, as well as the initial evaluation of Library IQ, which is also a pretty big deal. They also did an evaluation of the A to Z databases for a consortial buy, which was also kind of a big deal, but that was more of a working big deal. So I'm just really thankful for all of the people who serve on the committees and do the work to keep this consortium going. That is how it works. There are perhaps some people who think that I am in charge, or Jake is in charge, or I don't know, that a person is in charge, and that is not the case. Evergreen, Indiana is governed by its members as much and perhaps even more so than the library is governed by its board of trustees. So thank you so much for the people who show up and just keep this going, keep it progressing and getting better and better for all of our member libraries. I'm going to take just a breath here real quickly, and then we're going to talk about training. Training has kind of changed a little bit this past year. It has traditionally been in a mode of training for the software, which is the Evergreen Fundamental Skills courses, and however the conference sessions are put together. And it has changed because I think both the trainers have changed and the technology has changed. And also we have gotten requests to do different types of trainings as well. So I just put a slide with a bunch of numbers and things here. You can go through that. Two things that I wanted to point out from this is that we had a great time at the regional user groups. It was weird because it was the first time we had met in person since COVID. And we did that around the state. Thank you to Hussey Mayfield, West Lafayette Public Library, Kendallville Public Library, Jennings County Public Library, and Mitchell Community Public Library for hosting those events. We tried to get them as around the state as we could, and not this year, but another year, we'll be doing it again. So if this is something that you would like to have at your library, please think about it. It was a great 2 hours of reconnecting, talking about what was upcoming in the software, what was happening in the consortium, and just getting to know one another again, because it had been a few years. And for those libraries that came in either just prior to or during COVID, a lot of them never met any of us in person. So it was just so valuable. And thank you to members of the executive committee who went to more than one as well to answer questions and to show solidarity. The other thing is I want to point out our YouTube views for our recording for different trainings. They continue to go up, and they continue to be more and more of a kind of a backboard for those who cannot attend live sessions, which becomes more difficult the busier you are, to be able to go and view the recording, check in, and have that count towards certification for our Cat 1s and our local admins, but also just to catch up on what's going in, things like new features and that. So I'm just really happy to see that continue to progress. Then we did welcome, we continue to welcome 3 new library systems. Porter County Public Library, we mentioned them last year, but they came in during 2022, so they get mentioned again. That was like just an awesome thing. I'm kind of to the point where we are far enough down the road that the anxiety and the fear that came along with it is gone. And now I'm like, oh my goodness, that was fun. That's probably inaccurate because I don't think that it was fun is the right word. but we did it, and we're so glad that they are an Evergreen, Indiana member. I know I personally continue to learn through my interactions with them, and that's an exciting thing for me. Lowell Public Library, then we weren't sure because we were still recovering from a pretty massive shift in staff and still working out the kinks with Porter County, but they had a deadline. They were sharing a system with Lake County Public Library. And if they did not leave that ILS agreement, they were going to get charged for the next year. And we're like, well, can we do it? I think we can maybe do it. And we did. And it was all hands on deck. And we had support from Equinox, and the team here was amazing. And their staff was excited. And so they became our 128th public library member. And then just this past February, the executive committee accepted the application by Pearston Public Library. We're very excited about that. They are a semi-automated library. And I'm not going to go into the details about what that means other than they have an OPAC, but they don't have a patron database. So we're going to get them fixed up, and there will be cataloging parties. I know that we've heard from several catalogers who are very excited to be able to go into their library and start getting their holdings into the system. And so we'll be announcing dates for those very soon. We are hoping to have them launch in early August, which is a bit of a stretch goal, but I think that it's realistic. Okay, development. Well, we upgraded to 3.9.1. I don't want to talk too much about upgrades because I have been through upgrades since 1.4, and there isn't a one that has gone through with zero angst. That's it. That's all I have to say about that. We keep progressing, and I'm thankful that the Evergreen community is all working together to continue to make it better. I already mentioned the Evergreen, Indiana development for the replace barcodes permission and the monographic parts bug fix. And then I did want to give a shout out to our representatives to the Evergreen Community Development Initiative, that being Laura Brzeski from Morgan County. Britta, I did not update that slide. Oh my goodness. Well, I did, but just not that one thing. Britta is from Indiana State Library, but she was obviously from Thorntown Public Library. And then Jocelyn from Indiana State Library and Scott Tracy from West Lafayette Public Library. Okay, now we're going to go into the statistics, or as I call them in my head, the leaderboards. They're not really leaderboards because whatever. So these are linked right here. And one reason that I encourage you to have these slides locally, these are just, honestly, these are for the number nerds amongst you. These are the spreadsheets that I keep. I will say that I keep this one offline, which is the 2022 compiled. Well, I don't anymore because it's 2022, even in 2023 now. And this is a monthly stat tracker that I get several reports from several places, and I compile them in here. So you're welcome to take a look through that. And then this is my tracker for Evergreen Indiana libraries, and I keep track of things like fine-free, auto renewal, and some other things. So you're welcome to get in there and take a look. I have other spreadsheets, but these were my most colorful and functional for this. So if you ever want more spreadsheets, let me know. So this is where we're at with Evergreen, Indiana. We now have 129 public library systems. That does include Pearston. Also with 189 physical locations. That does not include lockers It does not include administrative places. This is places where patrons can go in, whether it be a bookmobile or a brick and mortar building, and borrow things. We are now serving patrons in 69 counties out of the 92 counties in Indiana. And then you can see that we have 133 library organizations. That is not really going to change, although I do periodically get a request for maybe what about the school library or something like that. Because of the nature of school libraries and the way that they need their collections to be shut down, we'll probably stay at the 2 school corporations until they decide to go to somewhere else and just focus our attention on the public libraries as much as we can, but who knows, they could change too. So one thing that I did do on these numbers is I wanted to keep last year's numbers in there so that you could just, it's not a real trend, but you could just have a little bit of context based on last year. We do have the updated census numbers, and that did cause a little bit of shift in our library demographics. So we had some libraries that became C libraries that had previously been B. We had some libraries become B libraries that had previously been A. We had some B libraries become A libraries. So, and if you're not familiar with that, I'm talking about a class of libraries. C being service population less than 10,000, B being between 10,000 and 40,000, and A being above 40,000. So you can see here that we do have an increase of active cardholders and unique borrowers, and that was a really positive thing for me to see. I know that there has been some angst amongst all the librarians after COVID. Just what does the use of a library look like? And we have lots of anecdotes about that, but it's nice to have some numbers as well. One of the things that I put in here, well, I don't think I want to go into that. Yes, I do. So I have here 31% of residents of Indiana are served by libraries. That is 31% of the residents of Indiana that are served by libraries are served by Evergreen Indiana libraries. When you add in unserved areas, it's 28%, and that is something to think about. Not because it's new or anything. I think we've been thinking about unserved areas forever, and nobody has come up with that magical solution to that yet. But I did want to highlight that last year, the number that was here only reflected residents of Indiana that were served by libraries and did not reflect those who were not as well. Both of these numbers are excluding NDPL and Fort Wayne. This was a fun thing to look at, how much our holdings increased. That's what happens when we add libraries to the system. Our holdings increase, but it wasn't only adding libraries, it was also collection development by everyone. So this is just a really exciting thing. Our patrons have access to over 8 million holdings across the consortium. And wow, that's just very cool. And this is kind of one of my favorite things. We are at 63 fully fine-free libraries. And I don't remember if I have on here another that will be our 64th. We continue to hear from more and more libraries that their boards are understanding why fine free is important for their community, and they're choosing to go that. With that said, I do want to kind of give my little caveat that fine free doesn't work for every library and every community. And so it is a great thing to be part of a consortium, a collaborative professional environment that can accommodate all of those so varied communities and even philosophies, and still be able to work together. So that is exciting. And our auto renewals, if you're not an auto renewal library, why not? Let me know. We can hook you up. But there may be a reason to not do that too. Okay, here we go. Those libraries who transited the most stuff. So this is just a purely quantitative glance at this here, that this is the number of transits. This is transits out, transits in, transits that belong to you, transits that didn't. So that's what this is. And I did go ahead because I thought that it was interesting. I put the class of the library behind it. And you'll see why I thought it was interesting, because then this is the next. It is the same thing, but it is calculated per capita by the library. And you can see how different those boards look. Of course they look different. I mean, they would. But I want to specifically shout out Fulton County Public Library, because they are actually on all three of these as a Class B library. So I'm going to pop back here real quick.
Sorry, we got a question if you can share those spreadsheets for each of those categories.
They are actually, all of that information is included in the two spreadsheets here. It's not as pretty. Doesn't make quite as much sense. So just, lists of numbers, but all of that data is in there, and where I got for this. So just a little bit more context for what this is. So I'll just use Oxford Public Library as the example. So for every person served by Oxford Public Library, so everybody that's counted in their service population area, 2.32 items were transited by that library. Now, again, this is everything. Transits out, transits in, transits owned by the library, transits not owned by the library. But that's what this per capita extra system transiting means. This transit ratio has to do with the difference between the transits going out and the transits coming in. So for Spiceland, being the number one here, for every one transit that came into their library, they sent out 11.7 items. Now, again, I want to caution you that with every number, there is a story. And you can surmise what the story might be if you look at your own, say you're from, Austin is here from Monon, and he can look at that and say, for every item that came into his library, 3.42 or 3.48 items went out. What might that mean for my library? But a leaderboard is a leaderboard, and we don't get all the stories behind it. It is here, and if you want to take, this is where I say for the data junkies like me, go into the spreadsheet. You will have fun. You will also go down a bit of a rabbit hole as you start looking up library websites and figuring out all their service population and how long they've been doing what. And this is a great place to start. figuring out things about other libraries and your own. Okay. Moving on from stats, although that's really where I want to spend the whole time, but we're kind of getting near the end. Just moving through the state library report. So we did have a conference. It was online, the Evergreen International Conference, excuse me. We had a keynote that I did not get to attend, and I was pretty upset about it, but nobody cares except for me. But I was there at the conference. It was a good one, shaping the future, and it was shaping the future of Evergreen. I got to present with my colleague Andrea from Equinox. She's also a friend. We had several individuals from Evergreen, Indiana, who were awarded scholarships to attend the online conference, which was exciting, and the ECDI, which I mentioned, are representatives to it, and I'm also the coordinator for that group, was an advocate level sponsor for it. This year is the first year that we will be back in person. And I didn't put where it's at. Oh, but it's in the logo, thank goodness. We're gonna be meeting in Worcester, yeah, Massachusetts, April the 26th through the 29th. You can see the theme is Community at the Heart of Evergreen. The president of Boston Public Library is going to be there to talk about the data breach that they had and what they have done to ensure patron privacy since then, maybe before then as well. Evergreen, Indiana was able to award 2 full scholarships to attend that, keeping in mind that in-person conferences are way more expensive than online conferences. So we are excited that Mary from Jennings County and Jocelyn from the Indiana State Library are going to be able to attend the international conference on the scholarship from Evergreen, Indiana. The ECDI is a champion level sponsor for this year's conference, and I will be presenting again with Andrea, and we cut a lot of jokes, and that's why some people have referred to it as the Ruth and Andrea show. We're very good friends, so but we will be presenting on new features in Evergreen 3.9 and 3.10, which just released. So now we'll be able to actually present on the brand new stuff. We did have an online hackaway in 2022. We decided that we're all tired of online hackaways because a lot more work gets done in person, but of course we're just post-COVID. We are theoretically on the schedule to do the 2023 hackaway here in Indiana, but I haven't heard, so I don't know if that is the case. I kind of hope that we do it next year so that we can alternate with the Evergreen, Indiana annual conference, which brings me to this. Oh, no, I said the regional user groups. Oh, what have I done here? That's okay. Skip that right here. Thank you to our regional user group meetings. Oh, I know what I did. We didn't have an annual conference in 2022. Instead, we did the 2022 regional user group meetings. Thank you to all of those libraries that hosted us. I am going to mention, or Janet is in the announcements about the 2023 conference. Okay, we're at that point for new business. So I don't know, Janet, I'll just read through this, and then if you want to, when we get through to this, talk about the slate of candidates. Okay, so everybody that is here, well, that's not true, but you can think that it is true. Every Indiana member library is a council member, and they are represented by the director of their library, who votes on their behalf for this specific thing, which is the election of members to our governance committees. There is going to be a paper ballot that's going to be mailed by the end of business tomorrow to each member library to select the choice of nominees. And then it can be returned by mail. It can also be scanned and returned to me. It needs to be done by May the 1st, 2023. We did have a late declination for a nominee, and we do have an open spot for a potential nominee as a Class C representative to the Patron Services Committee. So, and this is where I'm going to turn my head and look over to chat. If you are from a Class C library and would like to nominate yourself, which we highly recommend in any of these nominations, by the way, to serve as a candidate to possibly be voted onto the Patron Services Committee, put it into chat that you want to do that. And I'm going to give you like 30 seconds to put it in there. In the meantime, we do have a pretty strong slate of candidates, and I'm very excited about that. We will need 2 Class A representatives, and the reason that I will say about this too, the reason that this is not a Class A, B, and C like it normally would be, is because of the 2020 census data and how that affected the governance committees. And so, so we will need 2 Class A representatives and no Class B representatives for the executive committee, and then Class C representative. And then it is a little bit less imperative for Patron Services to have class representation, but we do need Class B. So thankfully, those are the people that also were nominated. And then we have one candidate, one nomination for candidate for the cataloging committee. I see nobody in the chat that is looking at, okay, I was checking my email real quick, that is self-nominating themselves. So with that said, I think, Janet, you can go ahead and call for.
Okay, so you want me to just read them?
I don't know
Because
that
we're
you
not
even
gonna
have to. I think
vote.
that you could just ask for a motion to accept the slate of candidates.
Oh, okay, can do. I would like a motion to accept the slate of candidates. And Judy Turpine.
Yep, Turpinine.
Yes, thank you. Made a motion. So is there a second? And there's a second from Trista.
From Trista. Okay, great.
Yeah. So all those in favor, say aye in the chat. Okay, it looks like the ayes have it. The slate is taken care of.
Awesome. Janet, do you want to read the announcements or do you want me to do? They got a little bit longer than I was anticipating.
Well, I can.
Okay.
Okay, the announcements, again, the election ballot closes on Monday, May 1st. So make sure you have it in by then. The executive committee will meet on April 11th at the Greenwood Public Library at 1 Eastern time or 12 Central. And the server operating system upgrades over the Easter weekend. So we'll be using offline mode, and a refresher session will be on April the 5th for that. And Evergreen International is April 26th through the 29th, and there is a virtual option. And looking ahead, the Indiana the Evergreen Indiana annual conference is going to be at the Garrison Conference Center on August the 18th. And calls for proposals will go out on April 14th, and registration will open on May the 1st.
And I will say Evergreen International Conference, you have 2 days if you actually want to go in person before registration closes. So, but if you are really interested in hearing the keynote speaker, that will be one of the things that you can do virtually. And then are there any questions or comments before we adjourn? Do see a hand up from Cheryl, so I wasn't sure if that was a vote or a request to speak. Nope. Okay. In that case, I think that you can call for motion to
Okay.
adjourn.
All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Nick Steffen, Garrett
Okay.
Public Library.
Okay.
I don't think there has to be a vote either.
All right. All right. We've got a motion. I presume there will be a second. Someone will want to second that.
That's great.
We have a second from Krista Ledbetter. So I think we are officially closed.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.